Good morning, my friends. Welcome to today's training on Thriving Beyond Codependency. I am Marshall Burtcher, and if you're new to me, I help codependents rediscover their well-being and their happiness after narcissistic abuse and codependency. And I help them accomplish that by helping them heal the core cause of codependency, which is the trauma bond. And I help them accomplish that by restoring their safety, their sanity, and their self. And I help them know, love, and live who they are so that they can go on and create a life that they enjoy and happy, healthy relationships in their world. Been at this for 12 worlds. Yeah, that's a lot. 12 years. I'm a recovered, I don't usually use the word recovered codependent, but I'm one who has evolved out of the need for codependency and work within the world of self-advocacy. Being who you are and allowing people to choose how they show up in your world and then choose how they fit in your world or not. So, all right. So today we're going to jump into attachment. We're going to talk about what I call the dominant attachment experience, the DAE, and how we evolve them. And so we're going to get some martial art in this experience and give you a better understanding of what attachment is, how it evolves, and the 4 types of attachment experiences or attachment styles that happen in our world and our lives and our experience, and then we'll go from there. So let me know in the comments you're here. Now, sometimes there are delays in broadcasts with Facebook. It seems like that's happening right now a little bit. We'll see if that sorts itself out, but I will post the full video once it's posted on YouTube. So also, I need to share this out to the community. The community is your safe haven here on the internet, where you can find guidance, support, and tools that help you heal codependency, help you reconnect with yourself, and reconnect with your potential of living and thriving beyond that codependency. You can find the community online by Googling it at Thriving Beyond Codependency Community, or Facebook searching it by the same name, or you can click on the link above if you're on Facebook, below on YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get this shared out real quick. There we go. And boom, we're done. All right. So today it's all about attachment. And so let's switch the view here so we can talk about what attachment is. Okay. All right, so attachment, the way I look at attachment is I look at it as a conduit. I'm going to do a little art here. So it's kind of like a freeway, and this is the freeway. All right, and we've got our little dashes in the middle there. And over here is you, all right? And over here is the other person that you want to connect with. So this freeway, this conduit, is your sense of connection with the other person. It's how needs, I'm going to draw this, needs, wants, and feelings are shared and then reciprocated and valued by the other person. This creates a sense of connection, a sense of bond, a sense of being seen, valued, and loved in your life. That's essentially what attachment does. But attachment has a couple of elements. That's its purpose. It's to create connection and bond with another human being. And it can be done with a person, place, or thing. So we can bond with animals, we can bond with places, we can bond with items, we can bond with other people, and we bond with, we bond with our inner child too. So we have this connection within ourselves too. So be mindful of that, because it plays an incredibly important role in inner child work and in how we return to occupying the space that we truly be. So I'm going to now open up a new one. Okay, so we're going to open up recent thingies, and it's still doing that. All right, cool. So I will fix this here in a second. I'm still getting used to this program, so it's kind of a trick this way. All right, there we go. All right, so now we have the conduit. We understand that this is about exchanging needs, wants, and feelings and having them reciprocated with us. So that's how the basic idea of an attachment works. There's 2 states of attachment that I operate from. So we have what's called the child attachment or child level attachment, and then we have what's called the adult bond. Okay. So adult bonding, child attachment, they are different things because they have different purposes. So under the child attachment component, this is what toddlers, infants, children, and teenagers need with their parents, and they tend to seek, if these things are not matured into an adult attachment or adult bond, they tend to seek it from their peers as well. The first big element of a child attachment is that they're dependent. Okay, they don't have a strong level of power. They're unable to meet their needs independent from another human being. This dependency is contrasted in the adult bond with autonomy. Okay, so autonomy is I am my own person. I have my own identity. I have my own sense of power. I can translate my feelings and my desires into proper choices and actions to get me results that I'm looking for. That's not something children generally can do. That's something that the parent is there to help them learn how to do. So that helps them mature from this child level attachment into an adult bond. So that's the first element there, is the children children are dependent. And they're dependent on the parent for specific things. The first thing is safety. Physical safety, emotional safety, and relational safety. Those three safeties are essential to our well-being so that we can grow, so that we can discover who we are. Because part of this, I'll put an E there for evolution. So when we have the three safeties, what happens for the child is that they're able to evolve their identity and their power in the world, which leads to more autonomy. So see how this is working here? I'm going to tab out here and see if there's comments or anything going on. All right, so let me know in the comments below if this is making sense. It helps me stay on target. All right, so the dependent sense of safety allows the child to develop their own sense of identity and their own sense of power. This is technically called individuation. Whee, me and my spectacular writing. So safety is the first thing that the parent or that the child depends on a parent for. The second thing is comfort. This is regulation. Typically it's co-regulation with the parent. And what this allows the child to develop and mature into is the ability to self-regulate and create intimacy with others. Now, we're not talking sexual intimacy. We're talking emotional intimacy. We're talking vulnerability. We're talking the freedom and willingness to be seen, to be valued, to be cared for, and allow someone to care for us with another human being. So we got self-regulation here and intimacy, and this allows for a what I would call, you could call co-regulation or interdependence to start developing. Wow, look at my really spectacular drawing skills. Okay, interdependence and autonomy. Okay, so we got safety. Then we've got comfort. We got care. We got that co-regulation that's going on. So the dependent is dependent literally on the parent for their sense of safety, for their sense of comfort, and then ultimately for their sense of discovery. Now, when it comes into discovery, the parent provides what's called a safe haven and a safe harbor. So the parent is the safe harbor for the child. The child can come to the parent and get comfort and get safety after they've gone out and explored the world a little bit and discovered something. So they can come back and say, I discovered this is what happened, it was scary. And then the parent would protect them, shelter them, giving them safety and giving them comfort. An attuned parent doing this, as a child discovers, they become confident. Okay? And this aligns them, me and my turn, aligns them more with their identity and their power. So it reinforces that, and it results in a person that has capability. Okay? I can do it. I can handle it. I've got safety. So in reality, with the evolution from a child attachment to an adult bond, they evolve into a person that is principally This will sound familiar. Available. They're available emotionally. They're available physically. They're available mentally for what they for relationships, so that they can ask for what they want, what they need, and they can have an exchange of feelings. They have what's called a secure bond. This is how I approach attachment, attachment healing, attachment maintenance, and attachment growth in my systems. Specifically in the Heal Yourself strategy, I help you meet these needs. Come here, Mr. Mouse. I help you meet these needs so you can start this evolution right here, which happens in the Know Yourself strategy, so you can experience this in your relationships and teach you how to do that in the relationship strategy. So boom, boom, boom. That's how I help you accomplish that. So let me know. I'm going to mouse out here, see if there's any comments. Anybody have any questions? Let me know if this is making sense. Okay, so none there. Okay, so I'm going to come back to martial art here. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to clear this out, open up another one. I'm getting the hang of this finally. All right, so we now know what's going on. So we have our child level attachment and our adult bond over here. Now, in my scenario previously, that's the ideal experience. We didn't experience that at all. What we experienced was we experienced neglect, abuse, and what I would call premature independence. In other words, the parent was not attuned or receptive to us so that we could develop these aspects of ourselves. This is the most extreme side of this. So this would be definitely a narcissistic parent, borderline parent, things like that. Now there's a spectrum here. There's a continuum on this. Now sometimes you've got parents that were attentive. I'll put an AT there for attentive. Sometimes they were available, so it's not so much neglect. But they still fostered this idea of independence. Well, this premature independence leads to anxiety. It leads to overwhelm. But they're still not in this abuse spectrum because the abuse isn't necessarily there. The neglect could be considered abuse by some standards. But the parent wasn't really available for the child. And then, we come over here and they're getting more and more available. And this is where the child is beginning to experience their own sense of individuality, their own sense of competency or capability, their confidence. They're also experiencing their power. They're able to exercise it, and the parents are able to give them guidance back, feedback on how they're using that power. So this is, basically the continuum of the kind of things we experience. Now in codependency, it's going to be on this half of the thing, of the spectrum, which leads us to have a problem, several problems. One, our sense of safety is low. Our sense of identity is incomplete. I'll write that there. Incomplete sense of identity. Our needs are unmet, so we've got neglect going on. And we are in that freeze-fawn loop, so we're in survival. So the freeze-fawn loop, FFL. This inhibits our brain from being able to develop our sense of identity and our sense of power. This is why we get stuck on the child attachment side of relationship. This is why we don't approach bonding from the adult bond, because we don't know who we are in that space yet. Okay? So here's how this typically shows up. And I'm taking this from the codependent point of view, not necessarily just from an attachment point of view. So the context of my approach here is in codependency. Specifically, people have dealt with highly narcissistic parents or partners, or have dealt with highly emotionally unavailable parents or partners. So I'm going to put that context there because it can be a little different in other systems. All right. Draw myself a pretty little box there. All right. So when we have gone through a neglect of our safety, a neglect of our need for discovery, our needs for identity and practice and comfort and care and all that, what happens is we're going to develop one of 4 attachment styles. So we have what's called a secure attachment. I'll put SC for that. We have what's called anxious. We have what's called avoidant. And we have what's called disorganized. These, they're commonly called attachment styles. That's what I've said here as well. But if I want to offer you a point of view shift that might contribute to a better understanding of what you're going through. Look at them as attachment experiences or attachment starting points. Man, my writing. Starting points. Yay! This allows us to shift the way we approach these particular set points and evolve them. Because again, these all start off in the child level attachment and they come over here to the adult bond. So it doesn't matter where you start. That's really the brilliance of this approach, in my view, is that it doesn't matter if I start with anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. I can always get to secure. Because I evolve from my child level attachment to my adult bond by meeting the needs of the child level attachment in a consistent, strong, and predictable way. This takes a lot of pain, a lot of drama, a lot of confusion out of how we handle our attachment style or attachment experience, especially shame and guilt for how we show up, because our attachment experience is just trying to communicate to us some specific needs. So ultimately, the goal in my mind is to get to secure attachment. Secure attachment means I feel safe being myself, so I have my autonomy, I have my power, I have my individuality, and I have interdependence. I can rely on another person. I can share a life with them and count on them, and they can count on me. So this ultimately shows up as a healthy means of meeting what I call the 4 zones of connection in the relationship strategy, which is your companionship, intimacy, support, and play are met through consent and privilege. Because one thing about the child level attachment here is it comes from entitlement and obligation when it's over here in the adult spectrum. Now, for a child, they are entitled to certain things from their parents, and the parent is obligated to the parent or to the child, in my point of view. Other people disagree with that. Well, let's disagree and then go with it. But over here in the adult world, these don't exist. Instead, we have consent and privilege because it's a peer-to-peer relationship. Nobody's obligated to love someone else. Nobody's obligated to meet their needs, wants, or respect their feelings. Nobody's entitled to those things. Instead, what we're going for is a consent and a privilege point of view. Privilege means relationship is sacred in the idea that I get to share this experience with this person. And because I regard them and myself with such high care and kindness and respect, that it's privileged to have this relationship with them. And because it's privileged, consent's the next logical step, and that I ask to partake in their resources, they ask to partake in mine. We exchange consensually so that there's no kind of pressure, no kind of demand, no kind of manipulation or control involved in this. This allows for that secure bond to flourish. So let's talk about the other 3 kinds of bonding approaches or our attachment experiences that we have. So we have anxious. Anxious attachment is really scared that they'll be abandoned. They have an identity dependence on the other person. They find themselves through the other person. They feel like they lose their center of their world when they're not in a relationship. They're usually very relationship fixated. They also use others and depend on others to regulate their sense of emotion, their sense of value, their sense of identity in the world. So anxious attachment's big fear is being abandoned and not being kept. And they have a porous sense of boundary and self, and they tend to chase. Okay? So their big thing is they chase, and they do not like space. Space is scary because space feels like abandonment or rejection. Right? So the way an anxious attachment, anxiously attached individual starts to move towards their secure bond is to flush out, fill out, mature their sense of identity, become more anchored in their autonomy, in their power, and then build a respect and a safety in space. And in other words, they're able to see a person differently. So I'm going to draw a you with a little circle and an other. So this would be you, this would be the other. Other is the other person, the you would be you. All right. So in the anxious attachment style, they're chasing after the other. The other is typically running away. Important. But if they're going to heal this, they need to move to, if they're going to have a secure bond, you and other need to have an exchange in the space here, which if we provide space, we allow bond to happen. We allow connection to occur. Because if we close this space up too much, then it starts to feel really smothering. It feels enmeshing, and the person loses their sense of identity, and their sense of power, and their sense of interdependence, and their sense of autonomy. So the goal for the anxious attached is to develop their sense of self and begin to build their sense of autonomy and relax into the space that allows connection to occur. I'm going to mouse out here and just see if there's any comments. Okay, no comments. We're doing good. All right, sweet. So I'm going to bring this back up. Now here with the avoidant attachment, there's some different things going on for them. They're scared of being smothered. They're scared of being controlled. They're scared of losing power and identity. And this happens because often, one of the parents or a partner engulfed them with that particular individual's needs. In other words, the engulfing individual used the person with avoidant attachment to regulate and meet the emotional needs of that person. So this is common with mothers who smother their sons, and the sons become engulfed in the world of the mother, and they don't have a sense of independence or freedom from that. And this happens also with mothers and fathers that do the same with their daughters. Term for this that can be a little jolting, it's called emotional incest. So the avoidant values space. Space is what helps them maintain their power and identity and avoid these traps. This means they have very little capacity for emotional bonding because emotional bonding fills its proximity. It closes that gap. So for the avoidant, the healing journey is more about leaning into connection while maintaining their autonomy. Yay! So we move into connection. I'm going to write that out a little more clearly. There we go, connection. So the goal here, when we draw our little circles here with the you and the other, the attachment moves towards the person, and this person moves towards them while maintaining the space. And then for the avoidant, they need to acknowledge that they have the power to choose this and that they actively consent to it. So it's something like, I want this closeness right now. I want this space right now. So they become very conscious about how their body is responding to the sense of proximity with another human being. Usually for the avoidant, that means being very aware of how flooded they feel or how they trip into a numb state or a shut down state emotionally, and they begin to pull away. It's also important for them to start to acknowledge and tune into their anxiety they feel about proximity. and then be able to regulate that while acknowledging the space that exists between them and the other person. I am personally, I'm what's called dismissive avoidant, which means when my avoidant attachment is activated, I just walk away. I'm done. There isn't a whole lot going on. There's a silent period there. It's actually quite mean and violent to the person I'm interacting with, because it leaves them going, what happened? What occurred here? So yeah, we gotta be mindful about how our attachment styles impact. For the anxious, you gotta be mindful that you're not allowed to control people. It's time to respect space. It's time to lean into a little bit of trust and to individuate and autonomize yourself, regulate yourself. For the avoidant, it's time to respect connection. It's time to lean into a little trust that they value who you are and you can keep yourself. And they have the right to ask for space, but you'll also have to regulate that space and regulate the connection with the other person with bids or interactions, small interactions that maintain the warmth of that connection. All right. Then we have what's called disorganized. And disorganized, if we were to draw that as a circle, they're doing both the anxious and the avoidant, and they're kind of frozen in this. Now, a lot of people share both of the anxious and avoidant styles, but at different levels. So the disorganized one is more close to the 50-50 approach for them. So this would be like a child walking into a room to ask their parent for something, fidgeting, leaving, coming back, fidgeting, leaving, coming back, and finally asking for it. That's the scary. It's scary to them because they are really confused and don't know what's going to happen. So it paralyzes them, but they're still trying to get their need, want met, or express their feeling. The avoidant, when they have a need, want, or feeling, they do it themselves. They're ultra independent. They're just not going to lean into connection. They're going to run for space. The anxious, when it has a need, want, or feeling, it leans towards the person and it seeks that experience through the other person to fulfill themselves. That's how these attachment experiences influence, or how they operate on that attachment freeway that we were talking about previously. The goal in all of these is to move towards secure attachment so that we can build the adult bond. And we can do that by managing the specific kinds of needs each attachment experience or style has. So remember that the actual need for anxious attachment is reassurance. They need to have reassurance through themselves and through the other person, but they also have to autonomize themselves, build into their identity more, and to more comfort in their sense of space with other people. The avoidant needs to build into their confidence and their autonomy and keeping themselves in a relationship rather than giving themselves away to regulate the other person, and lean into connection and discover how safe it is while maintaining their need for space and power and individuality. This moves these attachment styles towards each other so that they're meeting each other where they are. So this is how I approach attachment. Now, in codependency, attachment, I'm going to not save this and bring this open to a new thing. So in codependency, they're dominantly anxious, but sometimes we're avoidant. And so we have to look at how we're meeting our needs through that spectrum. I'm going to switch the screen over because I don't think we need any more art here. So as we meet our needs we meet what's called the 10 core needs with safe and secure people who have patterns of behavior that are reliable and that demonstrate that they have trust and integrity, the 8 relationship bare minimums. Then we're able to lean into the vulnerability and build that connection with them. This leads us out of codependency. And when we've met that need, those child attachment needs for safety, for comfort, and for discovery, it allows us to exit the freeze-fawn loop that's the core cause of codependency. It allows us to mature our identity, our power, and our autonomy so that we can move into an adult bond. This is how we deal with attachment in my systems. This is how I approach it. We start with the Heal Yourself strategy, where we bring regulation to attachment distress. It's where we begin to learn what our style is and how to nurture ourselves through our 10 core needs and through leaning either into space or into connection, depending on where we're at. And then we go into the Know Yourself strategy. We get a little deeper to meeting those internal needs with ourselves, meeting our needs with others, practicing this maturity and becoming more autonomized, more individualized, and more anchored in our power, so that we can then build an interdependent bond with others while keeping ourselves. And that leads us into the relationship strategy, where I teach you how to do that end of it. So there we go. So that is it for today, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up. If you're struggling with this, or you're looking for freedom from codependency, enroll in the Heal Yourself strategy. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. Thank you for being here. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in our next training. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.